Good morning, everyone. Um, so today is day 82, and I think I know yesterday I said I was going to talk about the different types of praise, like Todah and Shabbat and Tehillah and all that kind of stuff. But I cannot, get away from God's presence and the benefits of God's presence and what God's presence brings. So I may spend the next 2 days on that. I'm not sure. Because again, the whole point of praise is to create or to make room for his presence, to create an environment for his presence. So I kind of want to stay on that a little bit and not really get into the whole, religiosity and the whole, get caught up in the mechanics of praise, if that makes any sense. Hey, Kim. So I kind of want to get to the heart and the purpose of praise, which again is God's presence. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But so I'm going to pretty much talk about what God's presence produced. And once you finally get into that, once you finally master is a big word, but once you get into a habit of creating an environment for God to come in, what results would that bring? So I'm going to go to Psalms chapter 16, verse 11, and it says, "You will show me the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence and the pleasures of living with you forever." So the first point, or the first one of the many, many benefits that God's presence brings is God's presence brings joy. Now there's a difference between joy and happiness, and I'm pretty sure I've said this before, but you would be wise to prefer joy over happiness. God's presence is the source of joy. Like somewhere in Nehemiah, I can't remember where. Let me see if I have it in my notes real quick. Nehemiah 8, verse 10. It says, "The joy of the Lord is your strength. The joy of the Lord makes you strong." Happiness depends on what's happening. It depends on, based on your perspective and your definitions and your standards. Depending on what's happening around you, that pretty much dictates your happiness. Joy does not, it doesn't matter what's going on. If you have the joy of the Lord, you're happy, good, bad, when hell breaks out around you, or whether you're in peace. When you have God's joy, all hell can break loose around you, and you're not ignorant to that. You're very aware of what's going on, but you are content, you are peaceful, and you are strong. It's really true when we hear the old mothers of the church say that the joy of the Lord, the world didn't give it to me and the world can't take it away. That is 100% true. So if you want to have more joy in your life, which I'm sure everyone can use, spend more time with God. Then eventually you'll find yourself, once you get into God's presence and you make that a daily habit of yours and you experience the joy of the Lord, what will happen is that eventually you'll be able to spread that joy to other people who don't have that joy. So joy is an automatic byproduct result of God's presence. Next, God's presence gives rest, this is my favorite benefit of God's presence. And for the purposes of this study, rest means to settle down, to give comfort, to cease, to be quiet, to cause to rest, be at rest, give rest, have rest, make rest, to set one's mind at rest, peace, and to remain. So when we're in God's presence, what are we resting from? What kind of work? We're resting from work. What kind of work, though? And I believe that the rest that we experience when we're in God's presence is the work that we're slaving over, the work that produces anxiety for us. When we are in God's presence, work is effortless. It's effortless. And this will make sense because after the fall, when God pretty much pushed Adam and Eve out from his presence, out from the Garden of Eden, his presence essentially, I believe one of the part of the curse after the fall, in Genesis 3:17, it says, "The ground is cursed because of you, and all your life you will struggle to scratch a living from it." So that is the work portion, the struggle part of it. But I believe that when we when we make room for God's presence in our life, work would not be that hard, because again, if you go back and think of the Garden of Eden in God's presence, Work was a joy. Work was a blessing. And I believe that we can experience that same thing when we're in God's presence. Hey, Sister Wright. Hey, Tia. Tia, I promise you I'm working on your budget. I will have it to you sometime this week. I promise. This month has been really crazy for me. So, again, when you're in God's presence, work should be effortless. Work should be a joy. Work should not cause you anxiety. And not only that, but God is working with you, if not for you. And that also makes me think of the Sabbath, which I know there are a lot of, hopefully there are not some on here. Hopefully I don't offend none of you guys, but, I'm still learning myself. But I know there are a lot of Seventh-day Adventists in the city that I'm living in. And that kind of makes me think about the Sabbath and as far as God giving us rest when we're in his presence. And I know that's mentioned in Exodus 20, chapter 20, verse 5. I'm just going to read that real quick. Remember to observe the Sabbath. I'm kind of going off topic a little bit, but a thought just came to me off the top of my notes last night. Remember to observe the Sabbath by keeping it holy. You have 6 days each week for ordinary work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day of rest dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. But in the 6 days, the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything in them. But on the seventh day, he rested. This is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath and set it apart as holy. So when I was reading the definition of rest and how God's presence comes and gives us rest from our work, I wonder if the Sabbath really has something to do with God's presence versus us literally ceasing from work. And again, no shade to SDAs. This is just my personal opinion, but I think, especially in the Old Testament, for those of us who are really hard pressed on keeping every single law in the Old Testament, again, I think we're missing the point. It's kind of going over our heads. I think that the principle, the spirit of the law is more important versus us literally carrying it out. But that's just my opinion. I don't think God is literally concerned about the works. I think as far as the Sabbath is concerned, I think he's more concerned about us spending time in his presence. Because in his presence, we have rest from our work. Again, when we're in God's presence, the work is effortless. The work is effortless, and the work is a joy. The work is a blessing. The work isn't labor, if that makes any sense. My personal opinion, I could get all wrong, but I'm studying as I go. So if I'm wrong, somebody just correct me. I don't mind being corrected. But anyway, getting back on hand, when God is with us, he is the one who does the work, and we are free from the anxiety of trying to make it right ourselves. And there's another example in Exodus 33. I kind of go over my time a little bit. I'm almost done though. But Exodus 33, God had tasked Moses with pretty much leading his people out of Egypt to the promised land, to the land that he promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that was an assignment. That was a task. That was work that he had to do. And Moses is being as wise as he is and being as close to God as he is. He said, I'm not going unless you go with me. And in response to that, in Exodus 33 and 14, the Lord replied, I will personally go with you, Moses, and I will give you rest. Everything will be fine for you. So in God's rest, rest from your work, rest from your labor, rest from you slaving away, success comes when God comes. Until then, we're just spinning our wheels. So I would encourage you guys, if you have an important task at hand, especially if you know that God has given you something to do, and it seems really, and it's a dream that God has given you that's way too big, something that you can't do by yourself, get in God's presence. Make room for God's presence in that big dream, in that assignment, in that task, and in that work. Then you will find that it's very, at the very least, you will have rest because you know that God is with you in that. And all that you do, you want God to be with you in it. And so personally, that's one of my goals for 2018, to work smarter and not harder, to have God be with me in everything that I do. Because had I known to do this in 2017, I would save a whole lot of time, energy, and money, quite frankly. But that is it for today. I really have to be on my way to work. I may continue on with the benefits of God's presence tomorrow, as far as God's presence bringing peace, protection in God's presence attracting the right people, God's presence bringing blessing. God's presence brings wisdom and vision. And God's presence bringing power. I have a lot, and I wanted to discuss it all today, but, I have to cap it at 15 minutes. So I may continue tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. But that is what I have today. So just a review, God's presence brings joy. If you need more joy in your life, seek the presence of God. God's presence gives you rest, more so a peace in your work and success in your work. I only covered 2 today. Wow. So joy and rest, that's what we covered today. Tomorrow, again, I'm more than likely I will continue the rest of the benefits of God's presence. So that is it. I will see you guys tomorrow at 7 a.m. See you guys tomorrow at 7 a.m.